Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Dunning. I'm a Master Certified Life Coach. Welcome to Two Cats Coaching and a Solo Person's Guide to ADHD. This is our fifth and final for now. I have the feeling the subject's going to come back. Discussion about grief. I am here with my friend Stacy Collins, who is a hospice chaplain and a longtime dear friend, and also someone who deals with ADHD. She got diagnosed before I did. She's the one who pointed me into the right direction. So you can blame her for this if you'd like. Today, we're going to talk about something that we both think is important, but is especially in Stacy's wheelhouse. We're going to talk about rituals and how we can use rituals to help us deal with all those different forms of grief, whether it is grief over a loved one, grief over a lost dream, grief over a pet. We've been talking about all these things. And if you're thinking, oh, rituals, I'm going to have to burn incense and light candles and, say Om 47 times. I promise you don't have to do that unless you really want to. If you want to, you can do that too. It's up to you. So a couple of things. Rituals can be great for us, but sometimes they can be challenging. Just the idea of setting them up sometimes can feel like a bit of an overwhelm. If you're trying to do something over time, then time blindness throws in. Oh, I forgot to light the candle this time. Or you open up those floodgates and the next thing you know, it all comes crashing in. The tsunami of feelings. Forgetting special days. Oh my gosh, it was my mother's birthday last week. I forgot. Or spiraling into other things. So, I want to bring this back to your work for a second here. From that chaplaincy perspective that you now have, what makes rituals so important for people? Why should we look at these as a way to work through our grief?
Yes, I think they, we talk a lot about meaning making and what does this, mean something? This life meant so much to me. How can I mark it in time? And sometimes a ritual can be just saying the loved one's name. I think these are actions we take in sort of time and space to name something, to remember someone, to honor their life. And if it's our own life and we've had some loss, just like all sorts of different types of things, not just the death of a loved one, maybe we need to have a ritual for ourselves, and in order to honor that was life then and this is life now. And so we do this. It's kind of I feel like it's sometimes people look at ritual and think, oh, it's something that isn't. It's a little spooky, or it seems this or that. But we do, we do all sorts of things that have meaning, and hopefully our life is filled with those. But this is even maybe more intentional when it's attached to loss. But the ADHD, those of us with ADHD, we sometimes do kind of go, oh gosh, that's another thing I have to plan, like a habit. Right. We think of it like that. But, if you see really that there's life on the other side of that ritual is creating really a sacred space, I'd call it, in our lives that maybe opens up our hearts a little more, or connects us to the beloved, or to ourselves. So definitely, there's a lot there.
I think you hit on the word there with intention.
Mm-hmm.
That rituals really are about intention. I'm going to take this time, and they don't have to be ongoing things. They can totally be one-offs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really missing whatever today. So I'm going to take this next 20 minutes and I'm going to sit with it. And then, if there's something you want to do, whether it's light a candle or write a little bit of journal or sing a favorite song or just look at pictures.
Mm-hmm.
That all is part of that ritualistic process. It's not always about going into church and genuflecting and lighting the candle, as they do in the Catholic churches especially. And if that's meaningful for you, that's great. But if that's not, then do your own.
Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to have a lot of preparation. In fact, sometimes I think the best rituals might be something you create on the spot,
Yes.
and just to go, I want to mark this. I want to mark this moment, or I want to feel more of mom. And so maybe it's all the senses that are involved in that, like certain smell is takes people back to a certain time.
Yes.
Music does, all these things. So that it's like creating this little container to say, I'm going to honor my feelings, and I'm going to honor the beloved or the situation.
Right. Well, you jumped ahead of me there, because I was just going to say, so one of the easiest ways to do a ritual is to look at your sense of your senses and sound, whether it's listening to a recording, whether it's listening to music, any of those things can be a good way to do it. Smells, again, smell is so instantaneous. It really is such a connector. So if you have a leftover bottle of perfume, or you see people who smell, hold and smell an old shirt that somebody wore, that still has their scent on them. You haven't washed it since they passed. Having a little memory center. I showed the things that I've kept of my cat Remington, who passed a few months ago. That I have his ashes and his paw print, and I've just got a little spot for them so that I remember. I also, at this point still, when I click open my phone, there's Remington, and I've left that one there for a while. It won't be there forever, but I've left that one there as a reminder that he was my beloved cat. Cooking favorite meal, or eating food. Having a piece of old jewelry or something like that, something you can touch.
Yes, yes. And I was just sharing with Christine, my sister who died when she was 40, her son is right now living with us, my nephew. And we, on her birthday in February, we went to a place that made wonderful fried chicken, and her favorite meal was always fried chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy and corn. So we got that and enjoyed it and talked about her. Mm-hmm. So I would say that's a ritual we're just forming right now, and I think
and she's been gone for a while.
Yes, she has.
So, but that's okay.
Yes,
you can form these later in life.
Yes, it started to come, and part of that was her son living with us. I thought, what's a way we together can honor her and feel the sadness and feel feel who she was. And I think, I think being able to just, again, be able to bring them a little closer through these rituals,
right.
is a beautiful thing. And it does take intention, because you have to, I think, having ADHD, sometimes I don't want any more decisions than I have to make. And I love to be ambivalent, and I love spontaneity, and I love, so this takes a little planning to say, hey, let's do this. And you can decide, like he and I talked about what her favorite meal was. So we sort of planned that one together, and he agreed this would be meaningful too. So it's not always rituals just by yourself. You can, sometimes it's with family and,
right.
or with a friend. So I think just letting yourself get creative and,
yes,
can really, be very healing, actually.
I like that. Well, let's talk about some other things that can be done. This is, of course, far from an extensive list, but I think the act of writing is really good. And I think personally, handwriting. Typing has his own advantages, and we're in a society now where we type more than we handwrite. But there's something about physically writing with a pen or a pencil, and it brings up different things. Whether you write a letter to the person, or if you just journal about your feelings, or just take a few notes. And then if you have something you need to let go, to rip that up and burn it, or put it. You talked about putting stuff in a river.
Yes, and letting it float away.
And letting it float away. Anything you can do to sort of let those things
Yes.
go. And that does, again, that act of physically doing it. As a teacher, one of the things I know is we have three ways of learning. We have oral, as in speaking. We have oral, as in hearing, AURAL. And we have kinesthetic, the act of physically doing something. And kinesthetic is actually the strongest of the three. And so the more you can do something, not just say it, not just hear it, but physically do,
Yes.
that actually gives you, it's a stronger bond.
Yes. Like I think of too, like, putting your hands in water or something
Yes.
for like sort of a sense of newness and kind of washing away the difficult things and
water
in
is
there.
very powerful.
Water is. So a lot of the earth, like a lot of the
Yeah.
elements.
You think about like the old Druids and stuff, they kind of knew what they were talking about.
Yes. And sometimes
The Native
even,
Americans, same
yes.
thing.
And sometimes it can be physically you're stepping over something or you're stepping into water or you're stepping into on the dirt path with bare feet. I mean, even that, I know it sounds a little, but again, it's that, like you just said, that is the kinesthetic and getting more senses involved.
Yes. The more of your senses you can do it with, the better. And then if those aren't comfortable, things like, so you've now started a new tradition with your nephew of possibly celebrating your sister on her birthday by having a favorite meal.
Yes.
And taking that time to talk, maybe having some pictures
Yes, and we
pass
did.
around.
We brought pictures. My mom had created, so it was his grandmother created a little baby book and through his childhood with just the two of them. And so I brought
nice.
that, and we looked through that, and that brings up then more memories and things. And so these things all kind of build on each other. And
Yep. I like you mentioned before we started the idea of doing a bucket list in honor of somebody. That and I talked about a friend of mine who unfortunately her daughter who was in her 20s committed suicide, and I don't know much of the story. That was before I met her, but this woman who I knew, she became a teacher to honor her daughter because that's what her daughter wanted to be. And honestly, she was a great teacher. Like, it was a really good fit, but she fulfilled her daughter's dream as a way of honoring her life. And what a beautiful way to honor
yes,
by taking on the career that her daughter had wanted and not done. So that's a pretty extreme example of the bucket list. But going to a place that somebody wants to, or skydiving because somebody always talked about it and they couldn't do it, and you do it in their honor. That could be, well, maybe not skydiving, but that could be really fun.
Oh, and I think the more you open up to this idea, like even as you're talking, I'm thinking of things like my dad died, some years ago, and he loved certain comedians. And so even watching a movie with Robin Williams or Steve Martin, I always said my dad's humor was a cross between the two of them. And so again, it's a way to say, oh, Dad, I mean, you just feel him. And is that hard sometimes? Yes, but it also, it recognizes the connection's still there.
Right. And I think video media can be a really important thing here. We've talked about music before, music playlists, and Stacy's got some ideas of playlists, and I do too. I think we're going to try to share some of that in the show notes. And watching, whether it's a movie that honors somebody, like that somebody really loved, or by watching something that allows you to cry. I'm personally not an easy crier. I don't cry at the drop of a hat. But sometimes I can feel it, like it's building in me. And so I purposefully watch or read or listen to something that makes me sad on purpose so that my body will be given permission to let go. And I think that's an important way to do it. I really enjoyed the series Grace and Frankie. And one of the characters in there she's a very hard-nosed, uptight, young executive woman and she's very driven. But one weekend she has taken over her mom's beachside house, and she's brought all the teary movies and the ice cream, and she's going to have a weekend where she cries herself out and just releases all the emotion that she's pent in. And then, of course, it's a comedy, so she gets interrupted. But but that concept of giving even if it's that kind of a thing where, okay, I'm going to set aside some time and I'm just going to let myself cry, and I'm going to let myself get it all out, and usually you feel better afterwards.
Yeah, and I think you may find any of us, as we're exploring this, we may try one thing and then it didn't feel like it quite did what it needed to, or whatever that was, and then find, I'm going to try something a little different next time. Or I think this is not something that's set in stone, certainly, and but you might develop it, and you might land on something that you're like, I want to do this again.
And be open to, if something hits you mentally, to go with it. I will say I am not somebody who's much for religious ritual. That's not something that normally appeals to me. But there have been times I do love to go into churches when I'm traveling, especially overseas, and I'm seeing, these big, beautiful old cathedrals. And I can't tell you how often I've ended up in front of that little bank of candles in the Catholic cathedral. And I usually light one for my mother. That's the specific one I do. I take the time and I throw my little donation in the box and take a minute and think about her, because she also loved that kind of beauty and the classical music and all of those things. And so, even just taking a couple of minutes, you don't have to take a weekend to cry. If you don't want to, you can just take a couple of minutes, make that thought.
Yes. And as a hospice chaplain, I'm still working on what ritual to create for myself, because, now I've known quite a few people to die in hospice, and I've not landed on the right ritual to acknowledge that this person had been in my life. Even if it's only 2 days, it may be 2 days, it may be a year and a half. So being able to, and one thing I'm thinking of is to just, for my own sake, write down maybe their first name and something that I have really appreciated about them, just one word or one sentence, and then being able to look back sometimes at this human being, even if they were just in my life for an instant, touched me. And I've thought about the candle for them, but I think even doing the writing down a name, and there is something to be said for saying a name again.
Yes.
Just not letting that name go unsaid. Not forgetting that person or who they were.
Yeah, as long as we continue to say their name, they continue to
live.
Yes.
I think
that's somebody's proverb.
Yes,
somewhere.
It is. I can't remember
where. But I think that's true. Mm-hmm. So, that was actually something I was going to ask you was, you're around other people's grief a lot, and how does that work for you?
Yes.
How are you able to handle that? You've already talked a little bit about this.
Yes.
Are there other things you try to do?
Yes. I definitely try to mark it and not just go like mark the moment. Sure. Instead of just, and maybe for me, it's holding the person or the family in light in my mind, because if I just go from one death to another and, don't mark it at all or name it or, acknowledge it and just go on with business as usual, it feels really, somehow doesn't feel even right to me, for me. And so I'm, even if it's just go into my car and sit for a moment, don't run to the next thing.
Yep.
Acknowledge. I feel like that's a huge one.
Yeah. Acknowledge.
Name it. They talk about name it and claim it. That's kind of an intense way to say some things, but name it and let this moment that is, this is someone that,
The people
others have loved, and family, and myself, if I get close enough to them. And, but even if I don't, I mean, just to have been with somebody in that time of their life too, you get a connection, and it is a blessing. And so to name it somehow, and then I feel like if I can do that, it doesn't, this work doesn't like just weigh me down. I think it would if I couldn't do that, or didn't do that, chose not to. I mean, this is all kind of choices. And like you said earlier, intentionality, being intentional about these big moments of loss. And
I agree. Rituals have so many different uses. It's not even just about grief.
Yes.
So, and I think another big one here, and this isn't quite a ritual, but, and I mentioned this briefly before, but don't let things go unsaid. If you love somebody, tell them.
Yeah.
If somebody's important to you, let them know. Said is, this is those words things. Said is better than unsaid. I miss my mother, but I don't regret the life I had with my mother, even though she died suddenly and we didn't get a chance to say goodbye. But I had said, she knew that. I didn't have to say it in that moment, which is good because I didn't get the chance.
Yeah.
And you sometimes don't get the chance, so don't let things fester.
Yes.
Let things linger.
But if you didn't get the chance, or you weren't ready to forgive, or then that's where I think at these times the ritual of a letter writing, it's amazing.
So
I've heard that. I've not had the experience myself so much, but I have definitely heard others say to be able to get those words down. And even if it's to let even anger out, and then to say, but yet I know that's not all of who you were, and I love you, and I forgive you. To be able to, if you're ready. I mean, and sometimes it takes 10 years to be ready for something like that. But it's so it's never too late to somehow connect again. And that's kind of part of the mystery of life. We don't know how that all works, but I think by even being intentional about it, it can, a lot of healing can happen.
Well, and I think one of the other things in the grieving process, even if grief isn't a simple 5 stages and it's more like a spiral, it does mean that things are going to come back, and that it's okay to know that, especially on certain anniversaries, like you were saying, your sister's birthday, things like Christmas and holidays for some people, or other things like that. It's okay to, take the time on those special days, treat yourself with good self-care on those days. And that's a great time to do some kind of a ritual, whether it's for yourself, even if it's just make a phone call and say, hey, just wanted to touch base because I know it's Mom's birthday today. And have that, and be able to have that conversation with somebody and just say, yeah, I miss her too.
Yes.
Even something as simple as that.
Well, and I think you even said this when we were kind of going over some things we might talk about, and about that idea of, say it has been maybe just, this is the first Christmas and it's been 6 months or something. Maybe the self-care is you don't have that meal that you've always had, and you create a new tradition, or you just this year do something different. And you can take a new tradition and say, out of that pain, something new is being born, even if it's from switching from turkey to something or whatever it is.
But and I do know people who have done things like, that first Christmas, they went on a vacation.
Oh.
So they wouldn't be with all the home things that would remind them, but would instead give them new experiences. I think that's a great way to look at that. That's not denying that somebody died. It's just saying, I need a break from my grief.
Yes. Yeah. Because this is what we have always done, and it's always been with that person.
Right.
So it's really self-care, and it's, I don't know. I think that maybe honoring even the person to say it has changed my life that much. I'm not going to go back to the regular thing right now, at least.
Yes. So as we work into closing here, so again, take the time to do just little micro rituals. Like we've talked about, light one candle, take a minute for a quick phone call. So listen to a song. Do something physical if you can, or something tangible. It doesn't have to be I have to go out and run for that. But if you have something tangible,
drink a glass of water and let it refresh you.
Oh, I like that. If an event is important to you and you're afraid you'll forget it, set yourself up, as we all do. Those of us with ADHD, set yourself up with the reminders of sticky notes or phone alarms or things like that. These things don't have to look like church services and ceremonies. They can if you prefer, but they don't have to. You can, when my adopted dad passed, he never really wanted a church service. And so we stood around in the cabin that he had loved and talked about him, told a couple of funny stories. My stepbrother, who I've never known super well, we did not grow up together, told a couple of really hysterical stories that day I've not forgotten. And then we went outside and we sang the doxology, and because that's what Mom could think of, and we scattered his ashes, and that was the whole thing in about 20 minutes. And that felt great. Oh. And matter of fact, it felt so great that all of my siblings and I are like, we want something like that. Like, I'm not sure we all feel that way now because that's been a long time ago, but yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. So one final reminder, grief is difficult. If you are feeling yourself triggered in any way, please do take the time to reach out to a mental health professional or your own personal doctor. If it's pretty serious, do call 911 or 988 in the United States. 988 is the mental health number that got set up just a handful of years ago. Grief with ADHD is messy.
Yes.
Sometimes our talking here has been a little messy. I'm going to have fun editing this, guys. I can tell you that. Woo! And know that rituals, they're here to help you. So find something that works for you. There's lots of information out there. I'm working on putting something together. I'm hoping it's actually going to be an ebook, but we'll see. Depends on how much time I have. And I think next time, if I remember right, I'm going to be talking about a complete change of pace, side hustles. Something I know really well. I don't have a job. I have side hustles, like 5 of them. So we'll talk about that next time. Thank you so much for coming. Remember, you may be solo in ADHD, but you are not alone. Thanks for coming. And thank you, Stacy.
Oh, absolutely.